Now, people aren't just asking, where are the jobs? They're asking, can I afford to insure a home here? Can I keep my home past 5 years or even 10 years with rising risk? Will this city have water that I can drink? Is the infrastructure here resilient? And can I raise a family here long term? And those questions, they reshape migration patterns. And whenever people move, capital follows. Geography isn't becoming less important in a digital world. It's actually becoming more important, more decisive. And some cities are quietly building these durable advantages, attracting workers, capital, and AI infrastructure aligned with demographic reality. Demographics redraw the map. I'm Bradley Schurman, and this is Population Next. For most of modern history, we assumed the future would be bigger and often brighter. More people, more workers, more growth. It all seemed inevitable. That assumption shaped everything from how we built our cities and our communities to how we funded retirement and healthcare systems, even to how countries planned and fought wars. But quietly and without a single dramatic headline, that era has come to an end. Today, more than 2/3 of the world's population lives in a nation where birth rates are below replacement level. Many are living in countries where deaths outpace births. And that means that entire nations are shrinking, and others are about to, including the United States. And when societies begin running out of people, the future doesn't unfold like it once has. It gets forced into a new reality, forced into automation, forced into new care systems, forced into new maps of power, forced even into new forms of warfare, which seem awfully dystopian. Today, I want to walk you through the 7 ways in which demographics are forcing the future. These are not coming someday in the next 5 or 10 years. They're happening right now. Before we get started, I like to offer a clarification. We often say that demographics aren't destiny. They don't perfectly predict the future, but they do force it in new and unique ways. It oftentimes means they limit the menu of options that we have available at our disposal for growth, or at least keeping the norms that we're accustomed to. So, for example, if you don't have enough working age adults, you can't staff hospitals and care homes the same way you did before. And of course, if your workforce shrinks, productivity has to come from somewhere else. And if societies age, their politics, their risk tolerance, and even their military strategy has to modify in a new way. Now, this may seem somewhat ideologic, but it's not. It's actually just basic math, basic arithmetic. So I'd like to start today with the shift underneath everything else. It's what's actually undergirding the change. And that's the end of population growth. You see, between 1950 and 2000, the post-war period, the second half of the 20th century, the global population more than doubled. That's an explosion against historic norms. Modern economic systems were built on that momentum. Growth felt natural, obviously inevitable for some, but the United Nations and other global agencies have projected that global population will stall sometime this century. Some major economies like Japan, Italy, South Korea, even China, they're already shrinking. And here's why that matters. Most institutions were designed for expansion and expansion alone. Pension systems assume more workers than retirees. Housing markets assume rising demand. School systems assume expanding enrollment. So when population growth slows or reverses, those systems don't glide gently into a new equilibrium. They often strain and sometimes buckle under the pressure of new norms. You see, growth was the condition of modern life for so long. It It was the background of what we did and how we planned. And when that background disappears, everything built on top of it starts to wobble. The second piece is that we're living in a world that is growing older. So at the same time populations are flattening or going into reverse, they're aging, and they're aging really fast too. You see, by 2030, 1 in 6 people globally will be over the age of 60. In countries like Japan, nearly a third of the population is already over the age of 65. And you can actually find this reality in some counties here in the United States too. And while you might think to yourself, well, this is something for the policy wonks to debate, it's not. It's a structural shift that will remake everything, because older societies, they spend more on healthcare. They save more and they spend less overall on consumer goods. They vote at higher rates, and they tend to prioritize rather stability over disruption. Aging changes consumer markets. It changes politics. It changes how much risk a society is willing to take. And it creates a fundamental imbalance. More people need care. Fewer people are available to provide it, which brings us to the pressure point most people feel first. And that, my friends, is a permanent labor shortage. You see, in the US alone, roughly 10,000 people turn 65 every day. That has never really happened before. Large generations, predominantly the boomers, are retiring. And there are only smaller generations left to replace them. Gen Z is significantly smaller than the boomers. And because of that, that gap doesn't close on its own. We can't magically recreate workers that don't exist. And globally, working age populations are peaking or declining across much of Europe and East Asia. Dependency ratios, which are the number of retirees supported by each worker, are rising. And this isn't just a short-term cycle that we'll get out of in Q1, Q2, Q3, or Q4 of next year. They're actually structural, and they will be with us for at least a generation, if not more. Healthcare systems, no matter where you are in the world, are short-staffed. Construction firms needed to build our infrastructure cannot find the labor they need. And school systems designed to teach our children can't find the teachers to fill those roles. Care workers, no matter where you are burning out. And this isn't about motivation and getting people to do more with less. It's just about the fundamentals. And when the fundamentals don't work in the way they used to, societies look for substitutes. And that's where we get to the rise of the AI workforce. And this certainly has been on the minds of everyone these days, no matter where you are in the US. And artificial intelligence and automation are more and more fitting into the story, not as hype, not as science fiction, but as actual substitution for human labor. So when populations stop growing, productivity simply has to come from somewhere, because we have to do more with fewer people. So what does AI become? It becomes a junior analyst instead of a new hire, a scheduling assistant instead of administrative staff, a customer service layer instead of a call center, a productivity multiplier for smaller teams. And here's the line most people miss, and I think it's really important during this transition to understand. AI isn't replacing workers in expanding societies. It's filling gaps in shrinking ones. In countries facing acute demographic decline, automation is no longer optional. It's part of their survival strategies. And when societies run out of people, they invariably turn to machines. That shift, it really doesn't stay contained into offices. It spills into the most human sector of all, and that's the care economy. Now, the care economy in this era of population change and demographic shifts really becomes one of the central nodes of our conversation. You see, by 2050, the number of people aged 80 or older globally is projected to triple. In the United States, older adults will soon outnumber children. So what that does for nations is it flips priorities. And here's why. More people will need long-term care, chronic disease management, home health support, assisted living and nursing care. At the same time, though, family sizes are smaller, so there are simply fewer adult children available to help their aging parents. In the US alone, projections show hundreds of thousands of caregiver positions going unfilled in the coming decade. This is only exacerbated by a new policy around immigration, which limits the inflow of people. Now, similar shortages are emerging across Europe and East Asia too. So what happens? Well, care becomes part of our infrastructure, and infrastructure gets redesigned. AI will step in to handle things like remote health monitoring, stuff you can already do on your iPhone and your Apple Watch, diagnostic support for caregivers, administrative coordination around the very complex paperwork that's needed for older adult care. Empathy remains human, though, but the logistics side goes digital. And this shouldn't be about replacing compassion. It's simply about scaling it to a world where human labor alone can't carry the weight. Now, the redrawing of the map is something that's happening too. Demographics don't just shape age structures, they reshape geography. Some regions worldwide are shrinking rapidly, as we've already discussed. And others are growing, some by natural births, but mostly those are growing through domestic or international migration. In advanced economies, immigration now accounts for a growing share of net population growth, but anti-immigration sentiment, mostly in the West, may be pulling that to an end. And without immigration, many countries will be declining faster than they had predicted. At the same time, climate and extreme weather risk is entering the equation. The United States has seen a dramatic rise in billion-dollar weather disasters over the past decade. Insurance markets in high-risk regions are tightening or retreating. So now demographic decisions are layered with environmental ones, and this is happening at scale. So individuals in these high-risk regions are starting to ask very simple questions, like, can I live here? And will this place be insurable in the coming years? You see, capital follows population shifts, and increasingly so does commute. The final shift is uncomfortable, but unavoidable, and it's one that we need to address. Historically, military power has depended on youth. Large armies required large numbers of young people to fight. But today, many advanced economies have median ages above 40. Military-age cohorts are shrinking across large parts of Europe and East Asia. Aging societies still compete. They still defend their interests. They still protect their power, but they become more casualty averse, simply because there are fewer people. And when societies become casualty averse, warfare starts to change. And we're already starting to see the expanded use of drones, predominantly in Ukraine and Russia, autonomous systems that pair with human command, and AI-driven surveillance and cyber operations and precision long-range weapons. And this isn't just a technological evolution. It is quite literally demographic adaptation. When young people are scarce, human soldiers become more precious, and machines take on a larger share of the risk. Aging societies don't stop competing, but they do compete differently. And as we move into this new era, the question that I keep thinking is, what happens if man no longer fights wars and they're only fought by machine? So let's step back. The 7 ways demographics are forcing the future. The end of population growth, a world that is growing older, permanent labor shortages, the rise of the AI workforce, the care economy taking over, the redrawing of the map, and the automation of conflict. None of these are speculative. We can actually see them unfolding in real time simply if you open a newspaper in the morning and read the stories beneath the stories. And here's the most important part of this. Demographics, they do not dictate outcomes. They dictate constraints. And while some have pegged this period as one of decline and despair, you can respond to aging with innovation or stagnation. That's your choice. You can respond to labor scarcity with productivity or denial. You can respond to geographic shifts with planning or with drift. For 2 centuries, modern life was built on expansion. The next chapter that we're living through will be built on constraint. Remember this, constraint does not end progress, but it does force a rethink and a redesign of the norms we're accustomed to. And what we design next, that part, it's still up to us. Thank you for joining today. If you'd like to learn more about the future of people, places, and prosperity, I encourage you to follow and subscribe on my Substack at populationnext.com. That's populationnext.com.